Hey guys, welcome. It is Sunday, and this is our Sunday transformation call. I am super excited because kind of how this all evolved is Darla and I were talking at the happy hour last week about how I thought it was just super cool how we have our team has grown so much and everybody's doing very different things. It's not a cookie cutter do the rock the basics training and everybody's doing it and it's having success. There's just everybody's kind of doing something very different. And I was very intrigued by your guys' stories. So what really kind of got me excited about it is I was talking about Meg, who's I'm her sponsor. And one of the things, and she'll talk about it more, but she talks about a lot is how scary sharing is. And so I don't know if you guys have ever heard when you talk to somebody about coaching and they're like, I can't share. I can't tell my story. And it's usually everybody's number one fear. And I thought it was just kind of neat to hear how people kind of get over that as new coaches. So Erin, I want to start with you if that's cool. So if you don't mind, just kind of introduce yourself. And we all watch you on social media because you're a freaking rock star and hysterical. But so we know that, Erin. But kind of introduce us to who you are, how long you've been a coach, and then I'm going to ask you a couple questions.
All right, my name's Erin Golightly. I'm still not quite used to that wonderful last name. Got married in June. I've been coaching for about, I think, 2 months now, and Tana is my upline coach.
Awesome. Did you guys hear that? 2 months. 2 months. And what is your rank, Erin? Do you have any coaches under you yet?
I have one. I'm working on another.
Okay.
So I will be Emerald before too long.
Yeah, but that's my point. It's 2 months and she's already halfway to Emerald. So that's awesome. Okay. So Erin, my first question is just very generic. And this is why I wanted to open it up with you is what attracted you to the business to begin with?
What attracted me to Beachbody in general was watching Tana's stories and how she worked her social media. We went to X-ray school together, and I watched her throughout that time, and then finally she reached out to me. I flat out told her no. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? And she kept following up with me over and over again, and finally, like 6 months later, I said, okay, fine, I'll give this a shot, like, if you leave me alone, okay? And then I took off with it. And then what wanted me to start coaching was I noticed that I was spending like most of my day reaching out to everyone in my accountability group. I was like commenting on all the posts, and Tana's like, girl, you're on here more than I am. Like, why are you not a coach? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, what do I have to do? So then it just kind of started from there that I was already so passionate about following up with everyone in my group. I was like, hey, like, why don't I coach? I'm passionate about it. I love it. Why not? And it holds me accountable too for me to get my workouts in and for me to lead by example.
Yes. So a couple of things I just wanted to point out is she said she knew about Beachbody because she watched Tana share her story, right? So if Tana wouldn't have ever shared her story, we wouldn't even know Miss Erin. So that is so important, I think, to hear. And then also the follow-up took her about 6 months to decide that she even wanted to buy the challenge pack. So it had nothing to do with coaching. She just wanted to be a part of the group. Took her 6 months. And then Michelle, you know I'm going to call you out on this, but one of the things she said there at the end is Tana finally said you should coach because you were already doing it. And I think that's so important for people to understand when you are a Rockstar Challenger, and you guys hear this in the trainings all the time, is you are your number one challenger, right? And so if you're doing it in the challenge groups, people look up to you already being in that group. So yeah, why not make a little on the side? So I love that. Okay. Last question, my friend, is what are some obstacles in the 2 months that you have been a coach that you felt like you had to overcome to be where you are right now?
My biggest obstacle was I did not grow up in an environment where we cooked. We went out to eat every single night. Like, I barely knew how to like boil water. Like, my mom and I did not cook at all. There was no like making sure you got like your proper portions of vegetables and fruits and anything like that. It actually wasn't until I met my husband now that he grew up in an environment where you cook every single night. And he couldn't handle going out to eat, so I had to learn kind of briefly. And I hated vegetables. I hated them. I can't stand them. And now I'm trying like cauliflower rice and Brussels sprouts, and like I just made like turnip French fries and like all of these really cool things that I'm getting ideas from my challengers. And now even my mom is doing it now. She's one of my challengers, and she's loving vegetables. And I'm like, where was this when I was growing up? Like, why did I have to figure this out on my own? So that was my biggest one, is figuring out how to cook, like what I was making, and then how to enjoy it, and then kind of perfect it from there.
That's awesome. And I think so true, because my mom grew up in the South. Like, if it's not covered in gravy or ranch, we didn't really eat it. Vegetables were canned green beans, right? So I totally get that. And that is an obstacle, because if you don't like vegetables, how are you supposed to tell other people to eat vegetables? And so one last question, just because I think this has to do with that. You kind of figuring out how to cook on your own, has that made it easier to share your story?
I think so, because I'm able to use myself as an example even more. And when I have challengers that are like, I don't know how to cook to save my life, and I'm like, girl, I don't either. So I figured it out. You can figure it out. We will walk through it together. I have one challenger that she's like, I can't give up my pasta. I can't do it. And I'm like, have you heard of zucchini noodles? She's like, no. And I'm like, oh, hold on. And then now all she eats is zucchini noodles instead of regular pasta. So I think it allows me to use myself as an example and be like, I suck at this. We will figure it out. If I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, just being that relatable. And I think too, what is it they always say? If you're sharing it, you're not creating it. So if you had already kind of figured it out on your own, you'd be having to recreate posts all day long. And now you don't have to do that. You're just documenting what you do. I love it. All right, Miss Erin, off the hot seat. Thank you, my dear. All right, Miss Meg. All right, so I kind of introduced you a little bit. Meg and I have met, we met online through online. Well, my friend is Tara in real life. Tara is Meg's friend in real life. And Meg and I are virtual friends, but really BFFs in real life. But we've never actually hugged each other, but we will soon. Hug. But this being said, is Meg was a coach many moons ago. And the thing that was very hard for her was sharing her story. And so when she decided to coach again, that was one of the things that we really talked about before she started to coach again, was just being comfortable with who she was and how to share that with confidence. So if you do not follow Meg already on Instagram or Facebook, I want you to do that when you leave this call, or right now, because there's no one on this planet more consistent about sharing their journey. And so those are what my questions are going to be about. So Meg, when you first signed up as a coach, you told me that you were not going to share your story on social media because that's just weird and nobody wants to know what you're doing anyway and what you're eating and how you're working out. And then somehow you now are on social media every single day sharing your story. Why did you kind of flip that?
So I don't know. I just started to flip it, I guess. I started realizing how much it helped me to think that people were actually watching me, that it kept me more accountable for everything that I was doing. Also sharing my story with a lot of my coworkers helped a lot. And then my biggest fear was not to share to share was because I was scared I was going to annoy the crap out of all my friends. Because there's actually, even though I'm over here in Solo Land in Arizona, there's actually a whole bunch of Beachbody people I know that just don't do it anymore. And they all have petered out, and all I have heard from all my other friends is, oh, did you see Sally's this? Not you, Sally, I just used your name. And how annoying this is. And I'm like, I never want to be that annoying person. So I always try to put it on, this is what I'm doing. I'm not here to sell you anything, but so that's kind of how I made it switch, because I started to enjoy hearing people's feedback and all that.
Okay. So it was more sharing your story for your own accountability, not to sell a product, not to, yes, you have the title of coach, but you weren't sharing as a coach. You were sharing as a challenger to share your results. I love that. And then how have you seen your own physical, mental results? How has that changed with your consistency of sharing your story?
There's been a lot of changes
about it. So
there's been a lot of changes. In the 4 weeks so I started let's go back a little bit farther. I started May, I think it was like May 8th or something. Sometime in May, I just looked at how much I weigh. I'm actually down 40 pounds since May. Since we started, thanks guys. Since we started the Lift 4, I'm down 22.2 pounds. And then I've lost 12 inches. So just hearing all that, or seeing all that, and seeing the growth there has helped me a whole bunch. Also, so let me try not to get emotional, because I've already been down this with Sally. I'm doing a whole bunch of different things I've never done. I have never been on a single date. I have never talked to a guy. All of those things have changed. Well, I haven't been on a date yet, but all those other things have changed. And the only way that it's become that way is because of the confidence of Beachbody, and the way I'm feeling about myself is a total different change within me. So that's I think I answered your question.
Oh my gosh, you did. And so much more, because I think you right there, Meg, you are why we are in this business, that it's a physical and an emotional transformation. And you just have to get there for people to understand how powerful it is, because it's not a DVD and it's not a shake, and it's these groups that we're in, and the just this power that comes from it. And so knowing your story and being a part of it is just a blessing, and I love it so much. So I am so proud of you. Look at all these comments, girl. Okay. Woo. Moving on to my friend Joni. Thank you, Meg. All right. Joni has kind of a cool story. I want you to introduce yourself to your name, where you're from, how long you've been a coach, and then I'll ask the first question.
Okay. Sorry, I have to get my screen back to wherever I was. Okay, so I'm Joni. I know some of you on here tonight, but I'm actually from a tiny town in north central Kansas, so 3 hours from the Kansas City area. And I started with Beachbody. I actually had a different coach, and I did a couple of rounds and had like huge success. And then Sarah Bray is my coach, and we work together. And so she said, "Oh, you should join, one of my challenge groups, just because we were doing like a work like challenge group and whatever." And I already knew a lot of like the information. And she's like, she's like, "You should just be a coach." She's like, "You have a great personality to be coach, and you can just do it for the discount." And so that's what I initially signed up for. That's what everybody does. They sign up to be a discount coach. And then I started sharing my story and like what it had done for me. And a lot of like my close work friends, I like showed them my pictures from just doing 2 rounds of like the 21-day fix. And it was even over like holidays and weddings. And I was like still getting really good results. And so that's kind of where I started, was just, sharing my transformation. And then, the more I did it, like the more energy I had. And like, I literally, before I started Beachbody, I was drowning in fatigue. Like I was working full time. I would come home to 2 kids, and I I mean, I was like, where's the caffeine? I can't even, I mean, in the evenings, I was literally drowning. I just wanted to go to bed. And so then after I started Beachbody, like my whole outlook on life pretty much changed. Like I worked out religiously before I had kids. I went to the gym every day after work. And then after I had kids, I never put time for myself. I gave all of my time to my children. And when someone said, do you want to go to the gym with me? I'd be like, I don't have time to go to the gym. Like, what are you talking about? And then I started getting up 30 minutes earlier, simply 30 minutes earlier. And I had more energy than ever, and I was seeing results. And I just, I just couldn't speak highly enough for Beachbody. And I was kicking myself because I didn't start earlier.
I love that. And I love leading into this, your first question is when you first started inviting, and I think this kind of goes with just your support system. We talked earlier about when you first started inviting, it was your warm market. So the difference between warm market and cold market is warm market is people you physically know, your mom, your dad, your friend, next door neighbor, whatever. And then your cold market might be people you're adding on your social media or whatever that you might not know. But they become your friends, right? So one of the questions I asked Joni is, where did she start with her invites? And I thought I would start with that. So where'd you start with your invites, and how did that go?
So definitely my warm market was like my close friends at work and my family members. They were definitely my first go-to people. And then a lot of my close friends, they don't live around here. So the close friends that I see often, it was easy to reach out to them. And then, after I went to Summit and like everything is social media, like they just kind of preach all about social media. And then I started adding stuff to my stories, and I actually had people reaching out to me that I never would have reached out to. Like people sending me messages on Instagram saying, oh, what is it that you're doing? So I thought I think that's pretty cool that if you are consistent, people will reach out to you.
For sure. So I think one of the issues I have had is none of my customers are my family or friends. Like most of my customers are probably cold market. So how did you kind of gain the trust of, like, I think for me, that's my biggest fear is calling my best friend, who's been my best friend since we were 8 years old, and saying, hey, I want you to do this with me. That scares me more than talking to a stranger. So talk to me about how you approached your friends and family about this that you're doing.
It was easy. Like I have 2 sisters and my mom's really big into like working out. So it's easy for me to talk to my family members, saying, hey, I'm doing this. And then one of my sisters, she actually did it before I was a coach, and she had lost 20 pounds. And so she knew the benefits of it. She's like, yeah, she's like, I'll do it with you. So I had support kind of right off the get go from my family. And then, with my work friends, there's tons of us, like nurses, therapists, like you name it. And I think that when I started, it was kind of like a chain effect, I guess. When you show one person, your transformation and you get them on board, well, then they start to talk about it to other people. And that's kind of how, I guess, like with work and close friends, like that's kind of how I went about it. In that sense, I don't know, I guess, does that answer your question kind of?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like both, whether it was your warm market or your cold market, you just shared your story and people asked you how to join you.
Right.
I don't want to downplay it and be like, it's that easy. Just share your story and people want to walk with you. But I think we are so scared to put ourselves out there, either to our friends and family or out there on social media. But these 3 ladies right here just proved to us, once you tell people what you're doing, they'll be like, yeah, that sounds cool. And I would like to do that too. And so, Joni, how long have you been a coach? Remind me.
It's been going on 8 months now.
8 months. And you're an Emerald coach, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I was probably Took me over a year to become Emerald Coach. Took me 2 years to become Diamond Coach. I was very slow. And I attribute all of that because I was scared to share my story. And so I just, if you got anything from this, guys, and I'll open this up for some questions, is I believe the common theme here is share your story out loud, share your story on social media, and share your story to like your friends and family. Shout it from the rooftops because you have confidence, Meg, because you lost the weight, Erin, Joni, because you don't want the fatigue in your life. Like, tell people about it. And every woman on this screen right now has felt that. And so when you are telling your story, there's somebody going, me too. And here is Joni to help me with it. So they don't know that if you're not sharing your story. And I just am excited about you three and all the other leaders on here because I didn't do that. And I've been a coach for over 3 years, and I kick myself that if I would have just grew some balls and told my story earlier, like I would be where I want to be, if that makes sense, right? Not only emotionally and physically, but also in my business. But I let fear hold me back, and that sucks. Fear sucks. So, all right. Does anybody have any questions for these ladies or anybody else?
Can I share something real quick?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so I had a coworker friend that I was intimidated by, and I don't know why. I feel like anybody that I feel that is doing things that I feel like I should have done when I was their age is intimidating to me because I got pregnant at 19 instead. Like, so I didn't do those things. But I just like asked her to work out with me at work, and we did shift shop, and it was like week 2, and she killed it. And then that was in like February, and then in April she bought a challenge pack, and I did a thing in our group post summit, like a poll and a group I was doing, like, hey, what do you want to talk about next month? Is it you want to do a book club? Do you want to talk about recipes? Do you want to talk, and then one other thing, and then said, do you want to go to Indy with me next year? And she was one of the people that said, yes, I want to go to Indy. And I'm like, what? Like, I totally blew my mind. And so, but I was still afraid to ask her about it. And then she's like, then she was talking about how she wanted like a sampler pack, and then she wanted to try all the things, and it was like a ghostwriter for a health and wellness thing in Thailand like years ago, and like that's what she did for a living. Oh my gosh. So she is doing this with me. Like, she just signed up yesterday to be a coach with me, and she wants to work with me, and it's really exciting, but at the same time it's still like I don't like, I struggle with that still, even after she's already like, yeah, girl, I'm all in. And so, but anyway, I just say that to say my consistency with her showed off regardless of my fears, like just being real with her showed her that it's cool. Like, my heart was in it. And then also my friend Donna, she did a boot camp with me with Darla 3 years ago. And we go to church together, and I invited her to join me. And she said, no, it's too expensive. And that was a year ago. And I've just been consistent. I haven't followed up with her. She reached out to me a week and a half ago and was like, hey, I've been thinking about doing Shakeology and trying to figure out how to put it in my budget. I figured that if I cut out eating out, that's half of it, and I'll figure out the rest of it. And then she messaged me, and then I told her my story about how I've made it work in my budget when I was unemployed. And then I kind of left it at that because we'd gone back and forth, and I didn't want to push it. Well, then she messaged me saying that she bought it, but she got it on the website. So instead of like under me, then I had to fill out all these other things, but it was still really cool. And she's like, I figured out how to make it work in my budget for, through December. Like, she did the hard work. I didn't have to do anything except show up. And I hope that my story's not all choppy, because sometimes the signal's not great. But consistency, that's all.
No, I love that. Not only the consistency that you followed up with her, which is, I mean, follow up is the secret sauce, right? But also that that she was someone you just kind of automatically in your head said she was going to say no. And I love that, because I think I think it's Trina Gray that always says, don't decide for them. Just ask them. Like, they can say no, and that's fine. They're not saying they hate your guts. They're just saying they don't want to do that, you know? But you don't need to decide for them. And I think that is crucial. Keep muting. Suzanne said something. Suzanne says she felt her business change when she started doing the messages and the stories. When you take that time to actually physically invite somebody, 100 for 3 challenge packs. Yeah, you have to ask about 100 people for people to say yes. I was on a call with corporate the other day, and this was huge for me, because I said, is my big goal. I want to go to the National Leadership Conference. That's what I want. I don't only want to go, I want them to pay for it. But you have to have so many elite points for that to happen. And I was like, all right, what do I need? So I'm on the call with corporate, and what do I need? And she goes, well, how many coaches do you sign a month? And I said, and this kind of goes to what Suzanne's saying, you have to have more to get more. And I said, well, I have probably one coach a month. And she goes, well, let me tell you this. 1 in 10 coaches will work. 1 in 10 will be a working coach. So if you are signing up 1 coach a month, that you're saying you will not even, you will have 1 working coach this year. I'm like, I don't want 1 working coach. I want 5 working coaches. So what do I got to do? And she's like, well, do the math, weirdo. So that brings my point. You have to attract more. You have to invite more. You have to, that whole 100 no's exercise. Sometimes it sucks. But here's the thing. When Meg said yes to me, she didn't know Michelle said no to me. You know what I mean? They don't know who's already telling you no. So just ask the question, and they'll say yes or no. One more thing, and then we can close or have questions or whatever. At Laurel, some of you guys met at the happy hour. And I shared this I think I shared it with Meg. Maybe I shared it with my success partner, Kristen. She sent me a message. We've been talking about, she wanted to do my back to balance, sent messages. And then she sent me a message, and she said, will you have a group later? Because I think I'm going to do this on my own first. And so I simply sent her a voicemail back, and I said, well, alone's no fun. You can do that. I don't care, but I'm telling you, alone's really lame. So, and I just kind of said it like that. And then the next second she was a coach. So my point is kind of what Rachel was saying, just be real with them, because alone is lame. How many, raise your hand if you've ever had success doing something all by yourself? Nobody, right? So I just was very real with her, and I didn't try to sugarcoat it. I wasn't old Sally would have been okay, no means not right now. Like Suzanne's saying, it does. It means not right now, but I knew it was right now. And so sometimes you just know, and you need to tell them the why again and again. Okay. Any other questions or tips or tricks?
I have a tip to share.
Yeah.
So I know one thing with me is I was getting overwhelmed with who did I talk to? When did I talk to them? Okay, they said no, I need to follow up with them in a couple days. My brain was going crazy. So Tana told me about this thing called Asana, ASANA, and it's free. And basically, I just set it up on there. So it's I talked to this person on this date about this, and you can set yourself reminders, and that's it. It takes all of the guesswork out of it. It takes all of the frustration of trying to remember who you talked to, who said no, that kind of thing. So let that product do the work for you. Just simply fill it out and say, this is who I talked to on this date. This is what they said. Set a due date from a month from now. It'll pop up, follow up with them then. So if you're scared about when to follow up with someone or forgetting or dropping the ball, just set a reminder for a month from now if they tell you no, and say, hey, how's it going? You're on my list to follow up with. I just want to make sure you're doing all right. I'd really like to support you. And then that's it. So just because it's not right now doesn't mean that they won't ever a month from now, 2 months from now. So I can comment the link to that on this video.
Yeah, please do.
Definitely would recommend doing that.
That's awesome. Yeah, you just got to track it somewhere. And Asana is great because it's free and it's mobile and it's on your phone. But My mom gave me, this is a clock that, can you hear that? It's gonna dong just for a few minutes. But do you have like that thing in your childhood home that you're like, that's my thing that I love more than anything? So this clock right here was my thing. And so my mom just gave it to me. It's a little annoying, but I love it. But the point is track somewhere, because you're right. I followed up with a girl the other day because I didn't track it properly. And I was like, oh, remember when you asked me about 21 Day Fix? And she's like, no, I did not ask you about 21 Day Fix. I asked you about 2B Mindset. And I'm like, oh, like you got to track that somewhere, because now I've lost credibility with her, and that sucks. Anybody else have anything? Questions, answer? That 9 little dongy thing means that we are all out of time. So guys, thank you so much for hopping on. Meg, Aaron, Joni, thank you for being in the hot seat with me. I recorded this, so I'm going to stop it right now.